Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're super excited to walk through specifically how AI and sustainability around Microsoft is what we're doing with our partners and clients, et cetera. So really happy to do this. If we go to the next slide, we're going to really talk about innovations in supply chain. So with this, what we're going to cover is specifically, I'm going to give you a quick overview in terms of Microsoft, where we're at with our goals. We have pretty aggressive goals, so I'm going to walk through some of that. Also, how we're using AI in our supply chains, both Microsoft and our partners. And then we're going to go into a few use cases. So the team over here is going to get up and walk through each of their use case and how they're using AI in their supply chain. Next, we're going to circle around for a short panel. So let's dive in. I think it's important as Microsoft is growing, and believe me, we're growing crazy because I move all of the racks that go around to all the data centers. As we continue to grow and innovate, one of the key things that is still important to us is sustainability. It's at the core of everything we do. We actually are midpoint to our very aggressive goals. And those goals, as you can see, is being carbon negative. And then not only did we want to be carbon negative by 2030, but then we threw in, hey, let's remove all our historical carbon issue as well, right? And then zero waste, water positive, and protect and preserve the ecosystems. And I will tell you, what I love about Microsoft is that it's not just individual initiatives that are taking place. It's the core of everything we do. It's the principle of what we do. And Nico will talk through just our mission statement, and sustainability is there for everybody to see, front and center. We're learning as we go, though. And what's really important as one of the core tools that we're using is our environmental sustainability annual report. This report is really important because we consider it crucial in terms of how we're monitoring ourselves, our commitments, and using best practice and being able to share that so everybody can use it. There we go. And we often say, where are we at? What's the progress of our goals? And as you can see, we're definitely on the upswing in terms of what we're doing. So the first, I'd like to tell my team all the time, data mata means data kills. We've got to use data. And when you compile accurate data with AI, you can make a world of difference in terms of streamlining your operations and accelerating the progress of what we want to do around sustainability. I'd like to highlight a couple different areas. The first is the CFE. So we are actually carbon-free electricity, where we want to use it, not just Microsoft, but we want the planet to be able to use CFE. And by doing that, we're making huge investments across the world in terms of contracting 34 gigawatts of power. And I asked Nico, I said, can anybody tell me 34 gigawatts of power and what that is? It's equivalent to, I think, around 34 nuclear power plants. It's a huge amount. So a lot in terms of what we're doing. We're also driving the use of carbon-free electricity in our manufacturing operations. So if you look at the devices side of Microsoft last year, 10-fold increase of the use of CFE when manufacturing the devices that you're using. So we're pretty proud of that. And then if we look at the next one is diverted operational waste. And so our teams are working to produce less, right? In terms of reuse, recycling. In 2024, we had a record-breaking milestone. Almost 91% of our hardware through the circularity centers, components were reused. That's a huge amount of reuse. The other thing we're doing in the logistics front is thousands of tons of waste is being diverted. And actually, we're starting a new program that we're kicking off this year in terms of recycling or reuse of our rack packagings that we're really excited about. This isn't advancing. Okay, so now let's talk about AI. We need to address the environments every single way we can. We are up for the challenge. So as the world, we want to harness the full benefits of AI in alignment with our commitment to responsible AI and our company's ambitious sustainability goals. There are areas that we really want to talk about, and we're optimizing the data center, right? In every which way we can, whether it's carbon-free, whether it's water, et cetera. We are committed to making that happen. We're also really advancing in terms of the low carbon materials. We've partnered, we've invested in a company in Sweden, for example, that 95% reduction of carbon in steel making versus the traditional steel making. So we're pretty pleased about investing to make the industry even better. Whatever that industry may be, we're working it. We're also improving the energy efficiency of cloud and AI itself, whether it is in the cloud AI stack or at the data centers from server to silicon. Now, what we're going to talk about today, and I'll get the group that's with me up on this stage here. We really want to talk about many of the organizations across the planet are using AI to improve sustainability. So we're creating that operational efficiency. You know, there's different areas, whether it's advancing research materials or resilience, et cetera. But what we're really going to focus on today is the supply chain. So you'll see the benefits of each of these use cases that they're going to share with us today. So with that, let's bring them up. So we have today, are you coming? Yep, Catherine, Christine, Kareem, and actually Nico are here today, and they're going to each share their use cases. So you'll see a streamline across the way how they're using AI in their supply chain to forward the initiatives. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As Kim said, I'm Christine Weidig. I am a strategic advisor for Schneider Electric. For those of you who don't know who Schneider Electric is, we're probably the biggest industrial technology company you've never heard of, but odds are there is some piece of our equipment in your home or in your building or in your workplace. So you also see some stats here on the slide. We are very, very committed to sustainability and ethics in general. So we're a $40+ billion company in annual revenue. We operate in 100 different countries. We just here in North America, we have around 20,000 employees. And we have a lot of superlatives here, right? So we are #1 microgrid operator, #1 distributed energy management systems platform, also #1 in EV charging, and I'm not going to read everything on the slide, but you get the picture. We are really committed not only to being a sustainable company in our own right, but really enabling our customers to make the energy transition with the support of digital tools. So we provide hardware, software, and services to enable the energy transition. And we're here talking about technology and cannot get the clicker to work. There we go. All right, so as Kim said, we're really here to talk about sustainability and supply chains and what our companies are doing to drive down emissions in those supply chains. So as a global company that manufactures equipment, in addition to some of the other things I mentioned, you can see that our Scope 3 emissions really dwarf our emissions under our operational control. So we have committed through the Science Based Targets Initiative to a 25% absolute carbon reduction across our entire value chain by 2030, and we've committed to being net zero by 2050. And since we're here with the climate group, I would be remiss not to mention that we are members of a number of their most strategic campaigns, including EP100, RE100, and EV100. If you don't know what all those acronyms mean, it's really about improving efficiency, renewable energy, and EV adoption. So to give a snapshot of our footprint across our global supply chain, we have 153 factories in 38 countries. We have 79 distribution centers in 44 countries, and we have over 300,000 finished goods and products that are shipped quarterly. And again, a lot more stats on the slide, but in addition to needing to meet our Science-Based Targets Initiative goals to reducing our supply chain emissions, we are also here to enable all of you and all of your organizations to also reduce your supply chain emissions. And we do that both through our advisory business, where we advise our customers on how to make those reductions, but also in terms of our digital tools. We have a platform called EcoStructure that helps to track emissions. We are increasingly using AI in that tool to not only have emissions reporting that's backward looking, but really look at how do you create a digital twin so that you can really do scenario analysis and understand how certain measures can improve your environmental performance so that you know you're on track to reduce those emissions. We also launched something we call the Zygo Hub, which is a marketplace where our customers can come together with solutions providers to source renewable energy and to find other solutions to both track and reduce their emissions. I'm waiting for the slide gods to, there we go, all right. So what I'm here to talk about today is a case study in a project that we did right here in New York City with the local utilities. So Con Edison is the local electric distribution utility, and also, depending on where you're located, also the natural gas utility and steam utility. And in this case, we partnered with Con Ed to use AI to determine where faults were occurring in their underground distribution system. So what's great about the Con Ed distribution system is, in order to enhance resilience, most of the distribution system, at least to the extent possible, is underground. But what that means is figuring out where these faults are, sending crews to the right location in a timely fashion is really important to reduce the potential that dirty diesel generators are activated because of those faults occurring on the system. So up until now, utilities have used a physics-based modeling methodology so that they could figure out where these faults are occurring. But the solution that we collaborated with Con Edison on is how could we leverage AI to better pinpoint where those faults are so that you can, with precision, dispatch those crews. And again, not only avoiding those diesel generators, but also all of the man hours and the time that it would take to figure out where these faults were. So you see some of the metrics on the sustainability impact here on the slide. So significantly reduced man hours by almost 1,000 hours saved, and also reduced that outage duration. So the reliability of the system was enhanced. So before I pass the baton here, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the other solutions that we're developing in partnership with utilities. So those fall into three broad categories: improving resilience and reliability, enabling more renewable energy and distributed energy resources to be brought onto the grid, grid modernization, and some other opportunities that really go into digitizing some what had been pretty manual records up until now. So just in broad strokes, I talked about finding faults, but we can also improve outage prediction. We can improve power quality, which is especially important. The more we digitize processes, power quality becomes much more important to the seamless operation of businesses. Also, and unlocking predictive maintenance. On the renewable and distributed energy generation side, it's very much about using AI to better optimize the mix of resources and the dispatch of battery energy storage or renewable energy onto the grid. And in terms of operation and maintenance, it goes to being able to better profile loads, balance load on feeders, et cetera. So a lot of opportunity. I know we're going to dive into that in the conversation, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm here to welcome Nico to join. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, are you ready? Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kareem Mohammed Noor. I'm a partner at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I lead our supply chain sustainability capabilities for the firm. So I spend a lot of time helping organizations think through how they mobilize their supply chains and their supply bases to meet sustainability needs, goals, and requirements, as well as more traditional needs around quality, price, service, et cetera. Today, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about, as we think about, I forgot I'm in charge here. As we think about the end-to-end supplier lifecycle and supply base management process, where do we see interventions of the opportunity to inject AI across that lifecycle? So what you'll see in front of you is essentially a roadmap taking you through a view of an end-to-end supply chain management visual. And as we think about how and when there's opportunities to infuse AI, there's a few different types of value providers that you look for. Oftentimes it's things like efficiency. Can we get things done more quickly with less manual intervention and in a more automated way? Is there a way to enhance precision and accuracy? And is there a way to increase the amount of value or impact that's created through that process? And so as you look through the boxes in front of you, each one of them highlights different flavors of that, and AI can help to solve for all of those. Now, we won't have a chance to dive into each of these today based on time, but we'll pick out a few just to give you some real-life examples of what that looks like. The framing that we'll do, that we'll walk through this, is using a case study. And so in this case study, we worked with a global food and agricultural company, specifically looking at their potato value chain. And the reason the potato value chain is both an interesting one and a really useful one for walking through different examples of where AI can be infused to generate value is a couple-fold. One, it's global. Potatoes are grown all over the world, and in every region of the world. It's a hardy crop that grows in a lot of different environments. And two, it has a relatively unique dynamic of you can find very large-scale farming operations that grow potatoes, and you can find individual smallholders that may have an acre or two of land, and everything in between. And so it creates a very unique set of complexities that make managing the entire value chain quite difficult. And so in this example, we're really focused on how can we find ways to manage that supply base at scale. And the reason that's challenging is because if you're a food company, likely your potato farmers aren't your immediate supplier or even your supplier's suppliers. They may be 3, 4 tiers down the value chain. And so visibility, access, influence are all quite limited. And so you have to solve for that. And then secondly, once you do solve for the who, you still have to figure out the what and the how. So how do you exert influence? How do you drive change? How do you move the needle across sustainability ambitions and goals, which is also quite complex. So the first example we'll look at here is around segmentation. So as we think about managing a value chain of thousands and thousands of growers, in this example, we're talking about upwards of 70 or 80,000 growers to support this organization's food supply. You have to figure out how to divide them in chunks that are meaningful in terms of how you engage them. So how do you think about growers that are more strategic, and how do you think about growers that are more tactical? How do you build a framework that allows you to operate differently with your strategic growers than maybe you do with your tactical growers? And so the AI solution here was using external and internal data to rapidly get a view of where your more strategic growers are versus your less strategic growers, using information and inputs like, from an external perspective, where are they? What's the ecosystem in which they operate? What are the climate dynamics in which they operate? What are the political environments in which they operate? And from an internal perspective, how much volume do they produce? How much yield do they have on the farm? What's their history look like with this client, in order to bring those data sets together and make a determination around how strategic or how tactical, or maybe a segment in between, are those growers, so that you can be really strategic about how you deploy resources. Resources might be providing incentives, providing investments into their growing operations, providing them with agronomy support, providing them with insurance vehicles to help protect against climate disasters or weather disasters, so that you know how to most efficiently and effectively allocate those resources, be it money, be it time, be it physical capacity. And so AI really helped make that possible. Without artificial intelligence, you could never really do that type of operation against 80,000 growers at scale in any sort of meaningful amount of time without armies and armies of people. The second example here is specific to what you'll see on the slide. Talks about negotiation, but it's really about strategic stakeholder engagement. So how can you use AI to more effectively curate your messaging and your approach with your suppliers, in this example with your growers? And the really cool technology application from an AI perspective on this one was, can we synthetically develop a set of personas that represent different personalities and personas of the growers that we're interacting with? And so whether you're thinking about a smallholder in India or a large-scale operation in the US, and everything in between, folks that are operating in relatively capitalistic environments or relatively socialistic environments, or they have public funding into their land or they don't, all of these different personas with all of these different lifestyles will have a wide variety of reactions to different initiatives that an organization may be pushing to their growers. If you're trying to drive sustainability changes and you're saying, we really want you to invest in biodiversity, we really want you to think about using cover crops to improve soil health, how will different personas, how are different growers react to that messaging? And are there different ways to package it in a way that will be more acceptable, more accepted, drive higher compliance? And so what this AI tool does is essentially synthetically create those personalities, so you can test different messaging, test different approaches, get feedback. You can have a conversation with the personas, all before you pick up the phone or send out a note or actually engage those growers to bring those messages home. And then lastly, as I'm running short on time, not a brand new use case, but certainly one that folks are really struggling with, which is, how do we manage, address, and mitigate risks in the value chain? So as we think about climate risk, weather risk, physical risk, How do we identify those, monitor them over time, and then manage them? What's unique about this application of AI is once we've identified the risk, is there a way to more effectively automate the addressing of that risk at scale? Can you use agents to send out automated messaging? Can you provide curated messages based on what we saw on the last slide to help check in on the risks and figure out what interventions need to be made in order to bring that risk as close to zero as possible? So 3 examples of where we're seeing AI really start to make an impact in managing value chains. This is an example in the agriculture and the food value chain world. I think they're really relevant even outside of food, but based on the nature of and dynamic of that value chain, thought it would be a good one to bring some of these to life. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to our other 2 speakers here, and of course, Kim, to you, and thanks to the Climate Group for having us. My name is Nico DiGolia, and I'm responsible for sustainability and innovation within Microsoft's Cloud Logistics organization. So Kim is actually my boss up here on stage with me, and is responsible for helping us effectively figure out, as our mission, how do we move forward and design and execute a network that at its core focuses on sustainability, drives innovation, and provides a secure transportation system that delivers the world's computer into our more than 400 data centers across the globe. How do we actually do that? How do we align those 4-part environmental sustainability commitments that Kim referenced earlier with our day-to-day operations? I see some of our suppliers in the audience. Thank you for the support that you give us. How do we move trucks using no emissions? How do we move air freight, ocean freight, warehousing, white glove services? How do we detrash? And how do we do all of this while also supporting the tremendous growth that we were talking about? I started at Microsoft in 2022. And every single year since I started, we have seen either double or triple-digit percentage-wise growth of volume moving through our network. That's because how many people in here have a LinkedIn? Are you all chatting on LinkedIn to get here, right? And message and connect with folks, right? How many folks have kids that may or may not cheat on their homework using ChatGPT or Copilot? Okay, see some hands that are going up, right? A lot of folks are using the data center technology and services, those cloud services, that actually require a physical set of infrastructure to come in. And what I'm here to talk about is how do we take those AI innovations that Microsoft is driving on behalf of our customers and partners that we heard up here with Schneider and with PwC, but also how are we leveraging those internally to drive better sustainability outcomes? So when we think about sustainability within supply chain operations, it really is a 3-pillar strategy or approach. We focus on data first as our foundation. As Kim said, data kills. It's either good enough to kill any opposition to the path forward, or it's bad enough to kill my career, and I would rather be on the first side of that, right? So data is at our foundation. We leverage the data to then identify opportunities to optimize how we do what we do, and then to transform the energy systems that are required to move the cargo around the globe in our supply chain. But we're going to focus here, of course, on the data, because this is an AI and sustainability intersection. And so we're going to go ahead and focus on the data piece of that and how leveraging artificial intelligence tooling plus the data foundation that we've been working on for the past 4 years actually enables us to achieve our sustainability outcomes. When we're talking about data at the intersection of transportation and supply chain, we're talking about measuring the carbon emissions from each part of every single transportation move that we execute. The hundreds of thousands of moves. We touch one of our 400 plus data centers roughly every 33 seconds. That means that since I got up here on stage. We've delivered into one of our data centers almost 10 times since I started talking, just to give you a sense of the scale. That's impossible, regardless of how phenomenal our teams are. That's impossible to manage at scale with human intelligence alone, especially when we're adding complexity, which is to say, not just optimizing for cost, which is your traditional supply chain activity, not just managing for quality of service, not just managing for the timeliness of the delivery to our delivery window, but we're also adding the complexity of managing to carbon targets and commitments as well. How do we do that, right? And so a couple of examples here that we have in terms of AI tools that have enabled our teams to better make decisions are up on the screen here. But the first one actually is not on the screen, and that's the one I'm going to talk about first, is carbon awareness. How many people here know what a metric ton of CO2 actually looks like? Okay, we have some carbon accounting nerds probably in this audience, which makes sense. I'm one of you. But most people don't, right? So we are increasing awareness of carbon using AI so that every single time somebody reaches out to our control tower and says, hey, give me this proof of delivery document, or where's this freight in the network? An AI agent automatically returns back the answer to that question, but also says, by the way, this shipment emitted X number of metric tons of CO2, and it plugs into the EPA's greenhouse gas equivalency calculator to then translate that into real terms for people. Help increase the literacy. It's also helping us better plan so that we can execute lower carbon moves. So shifting from air to ocean, driving better consolidation through network optimization, and then also helping us better identify the opportunities for where we can deploy alternative energies like sustainable aviation fuels, maritime fuels, electric trucks, and renewable diesels that are becoming increasingly available. And last year, we actually were able to deploy enough of those fuels to go to the moon and back 85 times carrying Microsoft Cargo, and we have plans to 4x that this year, right? So really just a tremendous amount of growth that we're driving and leveraging artificial intelligence to help us make those better decisions. The impact of that tooling, and this is my before last slide here, the impact of that tooling is that in 2024, so our last fiscal year, we saw a decrease in the carbon intensity for moving our freight from point A to point B. So per unit of cargo that we're moving through that system, we're 73% more efficient now than we were before. 73%. That means that we can move significantly more freight with the same amount of energy to do it. And that's why for us, when we think about best-in-class logistics, it's about balancing these different dimensions of success. It's about being innovative, it's about being efficient, it's of course about being secure end-to-end for our customers and for our infrastructure, and most importantly for the purposes, of course, of this conference and for my personal work, it's about being sustainable as well. So thank you so much. We're going to transition to a quick panel discussion now, and I'm going to pass it over to Kim as our moderator and facilitator. Thank you.
Great. So I think if I heard all three of you correctly, there is a common theme in terms of data sets, in terms of the need to react quickly, mitigate risk, et cetera. But I want to go back to Kareem just a little bit on potatoes. I am from Idaho. So I am hoping that you did a persona of one of the potato farmers in Idaho. But anyway, I just want to ask this to all of you, because you see how successful AI has been in your sustainability journey in your supply chain, what do you do to garner the support of your leadership? I'll start with you, Christine.
Sure. So the advantage of being in the energy business is not only do we have ambitious climate commitments that mean we need to walk the talk, but we really know what the levers are for helping our customers improve their environmental performance. So it really isn't a question so much of how did we garner the internal support, since we are in this business, and it is part of our mission to use technology, and now increasingly AI within our technology, to drive those decarbonization and resilience outcomes. So our vision is the future will be increasingly electric, and that we will increasingly need to use AI and data tools to make sure that we're using that electricity as efficiently as possible, and that that electricity is as clean as possible. And so part of when it comes to how we're approaching the rollout of AI and different tools, I think right now it's sort of all of the above. How can we use AI within all of our different business units, all of our products? How we already have many different software suites that underpin our products or our standalone products, digital twins for power flows. We've had that for a long time, EcoStruxure and Microgrid Advisor to determine for your on-site distributed energy resources, when is it that you should store energy? When do you dispatch it? How do you really optimize the lowest carbon intensity resource possible? And, in terms of the impacts of that, peak energy usage, so peak demand for any given customer, odds are, those system peaks, that energy you're using is 2 to 3 times dirtier than if you can bring those peaks down. So how is it that we're becoming more efficient and having that visibility, having that ability to forecast and dispatch with precision? And it's really AI that's unlocking that. So we are all in. And, I'm sure over the course of the discussion, we could talk about some other fun ways that we're leveraging AI, including, I'm an EV driver. How many of you out there are EV drivers? Awesome. So 60 to 70% of US households will need to upgrade their electric panels to be able to do at-home charging for EVs. We have an AI tool that with a single snapshot can tell you what the capacity is on your home electric panel, so that we don't immediately assume that we need a costly upgrade that can be an impediment to EV adoption. So these are the types of things that all of the people at Schneider that are way smarter than me are figuring out to bring to the rest of you all.
Can I riff off of that for a second? Because that example of the EVs is so interesting. I'm a new EV driver, relatively new. And the first electrician I had come over to my house quoted me $15,000 to upgrade my electrical service.
That's crazy.
To plug in a charger, right? Turns out that there is now tooling that you can do that monitors your load and can intelligently slow down the rate of charging at the EV in my house, which is power constrained. That EV charger installation cost went from 15 grand down to $900, right? And that's because that technology is moving so fast that it can monitor the amount of current that my dryer and my oven and whatever else are leveraging, and tell the car, hey, maybe charge a little slower right now. And then when all those tools turn off, it accelerates. So that was just like, when you said that, it immediately resonated with me.
Well,
and there's a cost impact, a
still.
direct cost. Sorry, Kim, go ahead. Yeah.
Mine was $300. I mean, but listen, we'll go to you, Nico, and then we'll go to Kareem. How did you get support for what we need to do at Microsoft?
In our case, and I think that it's actually probably a similar case across the three of us, when we think about supply chain, there's really 3 dimensions of success, right? How much is it going to cost you? How fast can you get it there? And quality embedded in that fastness. And then how much carbon emissions, or what's the sustainability impact? We call those the 3 C's of supply chain sustainability: cost, carbon, and cycle time. What we've been able to demonstrate is that by leveraging AI tooling, we can actually deliver faster, more efficiently, and at a lower cost. And the 2 data points to support that are that 73% reduction that I just talked about, the overwhelming majority of that is driven through operational efficiency gains. Putting more cargo on a truck, driving fewer miles or kilometers, shifting from more carbon-intensive or dirtier modes of transportation, like you were referencing, those peaker modes of transportation. We have to move it fast because something broke in planning. We have to put it on a plane. But we can actually switch it down to a ship that has a 98% reduction in CO2 emissions per unit of freight moved. And so because we've been able to demonstrate that by having better tooling, we can optimize dynamically across those 3 dimensions of success, our leadership team, Kim inclusive, has said, hey, go forward and invest as much as possible to streamline out the operation because you're returning margin to the business while also driving down the CO2 emissions in this planned scenario. So that's at least on our side. We leverage data to go out and do that and drive forward on those 3 C's all at the same time. Move faster, move more efficiently, and move at a more competitive cost and protect the margin for our Microsoft so that we can deliver the products to our customers at a more competitive rate.
And I think it goes back to the data, because you have data to prove to your executives that this is why it makes sense. And we use AI to do that.
Absolutely.
So really encourage it. And Kareem.
No, I would definitely echo what they both said. The only things I'd add, as we thought about approach to garnering support, I mean, really 3 things were important to that. One is being laser focused on value case, not relying on sustainability for sustainability's sake, but how does that fit into the overall value proposition? Like you said, cost, service, quality, like the things that every company is going to care about for any investment. 2 was understanding what the change impact looked like. So for something like this, where we were really rethinking the way they engage all of their value chain partners, is what does that look like for each of the stakeholders that were involved, from procurement to manufacturing to logistics to their supplier manager and country leads. And then thirdly was, how do we, as one of my mentors loved to say, how do you date before you marry? So can you figure out ways to pilot the new approach before you roll it out globally? So and do so in a smart way, where we piloted a handful of countries that looked wildly different from each other, so that you're testing the model in different environments to make sure that when you do roll it out, you won't have too many surprises.
Good. So I have a fun question. So let's say we're back here next year. What would you like to see? Let's say everything is moving forward in terms of AI, sustainability, et cetera. What would you like to see? What would you be talking about next year, this same week at Climate Week?
I have a knee-jerk answer for that. I think that right now we're developing a lot of agents that execute on their function. Hey, agent, tell me what the optimum mix is for sea versus air freight on the China to West Coast North America leg. Very specific. But what I'm excited about now is that we have what are called agent-to-agent protocols that are being embedded across everything that we do at Microsoft as part of our Azure tech stack. And what that allows us to do is have agents actually talk to each other, so that you have the agent that's saying, hey, here's the optimum mode mix for that lane. And then we have that alternative fuels agent that's also telling us, hey, the jet fuel price for SAF right now is great. You should go out and procure additional SAF volume today. Okay, so that might then shift the overall strategy. And so I think that by this time next year, within the next 12 months, we'll actually be able to have a series of agents that communicate with each other and effectively enable a more comprehensive strategy that allows us to act locally so that we can impact our metrics globally, and just have a human in the loop at the very end who's then saying, yes, that looks like the right path forward. Let's go forward and execute on that, so that the team is all driving in one direction. But I'd be curious to hear, like in y'all's case, in the case of our friendly potato farmers, like what does a year forward look like?
What are you hoping for next year, what it looks like?
Well, broadly, I couldn't agree more with where Nico is going, which is, we call it sort of orchestration of agents, right? How do you build a layer that is able to manage an entire ecosystem of agents that are executing activities and doing work, and maintaining that human in the loop to make sure that you have the right decision points managed in a responsible way. Specific to potatoes, what I'd love to see is, and one of the things we're working on is how do you. So one of the great promises of Gen AI is the translation of unstructured data into structured data, and so one of the things we're really focused on is it's really hard to get really quality data from deep into the value chain. And so how do you find ways to grasp at any level of data, even if it's responses to a survey or entries on a phone call or responses to a text message, and pull that into a database where you can have a layer on top that translates that into something that could end up on an Excel spreadsheet and be put into a report. We're dancing around it, but this time next year, I'd love to see us all the way in.
It's great.
All right, I see. Please wrap panel in 53 seconds, so I'll be really short and sweet. But what really excited me about this panel is Schneider is on both sides of the AI equation, right? So we are building microgrids for data centers. We have a lot of equipment that goes into data centers for cooling and power and all of those things. And I feel like so much of what we've been talking about as a community of practice has been what energy hogs data centers are, and AI is this big black hole of energy need. But here we are talking about how AI could be leveraged to become more efficient, to deploy more renewables, to reduce supply chain and value chain emissions. And I would like to come back here next year and have, if not equal, maybe more talk about all of the solutions that we're building with AI, rather than just focusing on all of the energy needs and the stress on the grid being produced by AI.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it. And I invite you all, look up the next steps. If you have questions, pardon?
Really, a big potato question, but really short.
Okay.
Why don't you use your LLMs to just rewrite Windows, rewrite C++, rewrite Office,
okay.
Take that
for
one.
a 25 to 30% energy improvement?
Yeah, I can take that one. Carbon-aware computing is actually built in now into all of our tooling. So if you have a Windows machine, you can go in there and you can actually leverage AI to be more efficient in the operation of your machine, A. And B, as was talked about by our CEO a short while ago, almost 80% of the code now that's being deployed across our tech stack is actually written with AI, with our carbon-aware computing principles in there. So that is actually happening, not a full rewrite, but we're moving in the direction of efficiency, eating our own dog food, if you will, so that we can drive the carbon outcomes that we want.
And again, you have the AI cases to advance sustainability here. I encourage you to get the QR codes and get more information. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.